We are doing Kaf Bet Amud Bet today. We are holding on Kaf Bet Amud Aleph by the Mishnah. Okay, says the Mishnah, Mi sheyesh lo ach mikol makom zokek et eshet achiv leibum. Anyone who has a brother, mikol makom, any type of brother from any mother, he is zokek his brother to yibum. Which means if somebody has a brother and he dies without children, his wife is zikukat to that brother from yibum. Obviously, if there's no brother, then there's no yibum. If a man dies without children and he has no brother, then his wife could marry whoever she wants. She does not require yibum or chalitza. V'achiv hu lekol davar, and no matter who that brother is from, it's his brother completely 100%. We're going to see in the Gemara what this means. Chutz mimi sheyesh lo ach min hashivcha o min haovedet kochavim. There are two exceptions. Someone who has a brother who comes from a shivcha or an ovedet kochavim. If his father was also with a shivcha and had a child, so the child of a shivcha goes after the mother, and the child of the shivcha is an eved. He's not fully Yisrael. And also an ovedet kochavim. If somebody had a child with an ovedet kochavim with goya, that child is a goy, is not Jewish, and therefore it's not considered his brother, and there's no yibum in that case, and there's also no relation to the brother. Mi sheyesh lo ben mikol makom poteret eshet aviv min hayibum. Anyone who has a son, then his wife does not need to do yibum. Meaning the son is poter his father's wife from yibum, regardless of who the mother is. V'chayav al makato, and he's chayav for hitting his father. Val kilelato, and he's chayav for cursing his father. Ubeno lechol davar, and he's considered his son with regard to everything. Chutz mimi sheyesh lo ben min hashivcha umina ovedet kochavim, with the exception of somebody who has a child from a shivcha or an ovedet kochavim. That child is not considered his son. That child does not poter him from yibum. So again, we know yibum is only when someone dies without children. If somebody dies with a child from a shivcha or a child from a goya, that's not counted as a child to poter from yibum. But if somebody dies with a child from another lady, so that child is considered a child to poter his father's wife from yibum, and his father's wife does not have to do yibum. Okay, says the Gemara, mikol makom la'atuye mai. What is mikol makom coming to include? Meaning the Mishnah said, mi sheyesh lo ach mikol makom, someone who has a brother from any place, from any scenario. So what's that coming to include? La'atuye mamzer. It's coming to include even if the child is a mamzer, which means someone who has a child, or someone who has a brother who's a mamzer. He's a kasher person. His father married his mother and had him, and then his father was with another woman who was chayave kritut, which creates a mamzer, and has another child who's a mamzer. So this person has a brother who's a mamzer. He's a Yisrael kasher 100%, and his brother is a mamzer. So in that scenario, we say even though his brother is a mamzer, his wife falls to yibum and is considered his brother for all purposes. So the Gemara says pshita achivhu. That's obvious. It's his brother. Why would I think otherwise? So he's a mamzer, but doesn't matter. He's his brother. So ma'odetema lelif achva achma b'nei Yaakov. I would have had a hava. I would have thought to learn from b'nei Yaakov. Malahalan ksherin velo pisulin. Just like by b'nei Yaakov, they're all ksherim and not psulim. Right? We had this drasha earlier to learn from b'nei Yaakov. It says Shnei Masar Achim Anachnu, calls them Achim, and they're all brothers that are kasher. None of them are mamzerim or anything like that. So Afkan Ksherim V'lo Psulim. So I would have thought that when it comes to Yibum as well, when it says Ki Yeshavu Achim Yachtav, it would have to follow the rule of Achva of Bnei Yaakov, and they have to be Ksherim and a pasul brother is not considered a brother. That's what I would have thought. Therefore, the Mishnah comes to teach me, no, we don't say that. And even a brother who's pasul, as long as his mother was not a shifcha or a goya, that's considered a brother. So the Gemara says, Ema achinami. Why don't we actually say this? Why don't we say that he's considered, it has to be an ach kasher to be considered a brother when it comes to yibum. So the Gemara says, Kevan deli inyan yibum miftar, niftar mizakek nami zakik. So since when it comes to yibum, he's poter, meaning if a child who's a mamzer is poter his father from yibum, so a brother who's a mamzer is also in the parsha of yibum, and a person who dies who has a brother who's a mamzer, his wife requires yibum and chalitza. Now, how do we know that when it comes to yibum, a child who's a mamzer is poter the father's wife from yibum? How do we know that? So that we're going to see soon in the Gemara. But what we're saying is, since we see from the fact that a child who's a mamzer is considered a child with regard to yibum, so also a brother who's a mamzer is considered a brother with regard to yibum, and we don't learn from Bnei Yaakov that they have to be ksherim. We just learn that they have to be brothers. Okay, v'achiv l'chol davar. We said that it's considered his brother with regard to everything. Says the Gemara, lemay hilchata. What with regard to what halacha are we saying that a mamzer is considered his brother with regard to everything? Leyorsho litamelo. With regard to the halacha of being yoresh his brother and becoming tameh to his brother, meaning if his brother dies who's a mamzer, or if he dies and his brother is a mamzer, the mamzer will be yoresh him, or he'll be yoresh the mamzer if they're the next in line for the Yerusha. And also also to be mitamelo. If his brother is a mamzer, he's allowed to become, if he's a kohen, and he's not allowed to become tameh to he's only allowed to become tameh to certain relatives. One of them is his brother. If his brother is a mamzer, he's allowed to become tameh to his brother. So the Gemara says, Pshita achivhu, that's obvious. It's his brother. Why would I think otherwise, that he can't become tameh to him, or he can't, he's not yoreshim? So the Gemara says, Sal kadata chamina, ho'elu ktiv, ki im lish'ero karov elav, v'amar mar she'ero zu ishto. So the Gemara says, I would have thought to compare it to a different halacha. We have a pasuk that says that a kohen can become tameh lish'ero ha'karov elav, to his relative who is karov to him. And what's she'ero? What relative is that referring to? Zu ishto. That's referring to his wife. Uktiv. But there's another pasuk that says lo yitama baal be'amav lehechalo, that a baal cannot become tameh. So on the one hand, we have a pasuk that says a husband can become tameh to his wife. But on the other hand, we have a pasuk that says that it seems to indicate that a husband cannot become tameh to his wife. So yesh baal she'mitameh ve'yesh baal she'en mitameh. We have a husband that could be mitameh to his wife, and there's another type of husband that cannot be mitameh to his wife. So haketzad, how do you work this out? Mitameh hu le'ishto kshera ve'en mitameh le'ishto psula. He's allowed to become tameh to his wife who's a kshera, meaning if he married a woman who he's allowed to be married to, then he's allowed to become tameh to her. But he's not allowed to become tameh to a woman who is psula. So I would have thought the same thing by the brother. I would have thought the same thing. He only can become tameh to his brother who is kasher, and not to his brother who is pasul. Kamash mala, and therefore the Mishnah comes to teach me that achiv hu lekol davar, and he's allowed to become tameh to the mamzer. Boker tov. So ve'ema achanami. Why don't we say taka? That's true. He cannot become tameh to his brother who's a mamzer. So the Gemara says hatam la'afuke kaima hacha achivhu. The difference by a wife and a brother is a kohen cannot become tameh to his wife who's psula, because over there la'afuke kai, she is waiting to go out, meaning he has to divorce her. He's not allowed to be with her. So he has to. We're not going to say that he can become tameh to his wife that he married, even though the kiddushin was chal and he's mikudeshet her. But chachamim, the Torah doesn't want this marriage to exist. He's supposed to really divorce her. So we're not going to say that he could become tameh to her. The Torah will not want him to become tameh to her. But with his brother, who's a pasul, it's his brother. So therefore, a brother is different than wife. Okay, we're holding on the Kaf Bet Amud Bet where it says chutz, right by the two dots. Chutz mimi sheyesh lo ach min hashifcha u'min haoved kochavim. So we said someone, his brother is considered his brother, and his wife would fall to yibum to that brother unless it's a brother from a shifcha or an oved kochavim, meaning his father took another woman who's a shifcha or a goya and had a child from that woman. That would not be considered his brother. My ta'ama. So Amar Kra Hayisha Viladea Tiel Adoneha. We learn from that pasuk that Hayisha Viladea Tiel Adoneha, that the children of a shifcha or a goya go after the mother. More on this later on in the Amud, or tomorrow's Amud, really. Okay. Mi sheyesh lo ben mikol makom poter et eshet aviv. So we also said anyone who has a child, any type of child, is poter his father-in-law, his father's wife from yibum. That child is poter his father's wife from yibum. So the Gemara says, mikol makom la tuye mai. What are we coming to include? What type of child are we coming to include? Amar Rav Yehuda la tuye mamzer. Even if the child is a mamzer, he's poter, that child is poter his father's wife from yibum. So if somebody has a child who's a mamzer, even though he doesn't have any kasher children, and he dies without children, without any other children, his wife does not have to do yibum, because that mamzer is considered a child with regard to being poter the father from yibum. The Gemara says, "My ta'ama." What's the reason that a mamzer is poter the father from yibum? The Amar Kra uben en lo ien alav. So we have this drasha in Kiddushin, also a similar type of drasha. The pasuk says uben en lo. En, it could be technically spelled without a yud. It could be spelled chaser. Rashi brings examples of the word en, me'en, me'en bilam halochimanu, me'en yevami lachiv shem Yisrael. So we have these psukim where ein is spelled without a yud. Over here it's spelled maleh with a yud. For us to make the drasha ien alav, you have to really look into it to make sure there's no children, meaning at all. And therefore we learn from there that if there is a mamzer he has a child who's a mamzer, that would be poter his wife from yibum. Okay, v'chayav al makato. Okay, we said that a child, even any type of child, is chayav on hitting his father and on cursing his father. So the Gemara says, thank you. So the Gemara says, Amai, karika menasi ba'amecha lo taor. So, a very interesting question. We just said before that mikol makom is coming to include a mamzer, which means we're talking about a child who's a mamzer. So that means, by definition, his father is somebody who was over nisur karet, right? His father, because mamzer, the way we pass it, mamzer comes from isur karet, which means his father was either with an eshet ish or with one of the arayot that's karet, with his sister, mother. So we're saying that child who's a mamzer has a he's chayav on hitting his father. So says the Gemara, Amai, why? V'karikan v'nasi ba'amecha lo ta'or. The pasuk says nasi ba'amecha lo ta'or. You can't curse a nasi ba'amecha. And we learn from that pasuk be'oseh ma'aseh amecha. It's only regarding somebody who's oseh ma'aseh amecha, but who's a frum person. But if someone's not a frum person, there's no mitzvah of nasi ba'amecha lo ta'or, and also there's no, according, it's big machlok rishonim whether there's a chiyuv kibud avim or not, but you wouldn't be chayav on hitting a parent who is not oseh ma'aseh amecha, who is an avaryan.
That pasuk is by a nasi.
It's by a nasi, yeah. But we learn the Gemara in Kiddushin brings it to learn from kibud avim. We learn kibud avim from there also. So Kida Amar, I think it's a Kal Vachomer we learned. So the Gemara says. So the question is, how, if he's a mamzer, how come he has he's chayav for hitting his parent? His parent is by definition an avaryan. So Kida Amar Rav Pinchas Mishmei de Rav Papa Ba'asat Teshuvah. We're talking about somebody who did Teshuvah. Meaning, if the father did not do Teshuvah, you're right. Somebody who is Boel Chayve Kritut, so the son does not have a Chiyu, he's not Chayav on cursing or hitting his father. But somebody who did Teshuvah, even though he has a child who's a Mamzer, that child is Chayav on hitting or cursing his father. So Hachanamik Sha'asat Teshuvah. So over here also the case, the case is that he did Teshuvah. So the Gemara says, 1 second, Va'abar Teshuvahu, is this person able to do Teshuvah? Vatnan, Shimon ben Menasya Omer, Eze Meuvad lo yuchal taken. Shimon ben Menasya teaches what's Meuvad lo yuchal taken, what's something that's messed up and cannot be fixed. Ze habal ha'erva veholid bimena mamzer. That's somebody who was with an erva and he had a mamzer. So Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya seems to be teaching that he cannot do Teshuvah. So the Gemara says, Hashtamiha oseh ma'aseh amecha. It's true, but he's still considered oseh ma'aseh amecha because right now he changed his ways and he's within the gather of oseh ma'aseh amecha. So even though it's something that's meuvad lo yuchal litkon, he can't fully fix it. He can't fully do teshuvah because the action was done and the mamzer is here and he can't change that. But nevertheless, he's still considered oseh ma'aseh amecha with regard to being included in the chiyuv of cursing their father. Okay, Taru Rabbanan. Haba alachoto v'hi bat esh daviv. Okay, so for this we have to know there's two psukim in the Torah. There's two psukim in the Torah that talk about a person's sister. Okay, so if you look on the side, they're both like two psukim apart from each other. One says ervat achotecha bat avicha o bat imecha moledet bait o moledet chutz lo tegale ervatan. One pasuk says that ervat bat avicha o bat imecha moledet bait o moledet chutz lo tegale ervatan. And then another pasuk says ervat bat bincha o bat bitecha. The next pasuk says ervat bat eshet avicha, the erva of the daughter of your father's wife. Moledet avicha, she came from your father. Achotecha, it's your sister. Lo tegale ervata. So why do I need two psukim? So says the Gemara, Taru Rabbanan, Haba al achoto v'hi bat eshet aviv. If somebody is together with his sister, who's from somebody who his father married, as opposed to a sister from somebody who his father took advantage of, right? There could be achoto ma'anusato, a sister because his father took advantage of a woman against her will and had a child. So it's his sister through a case who his father was ma'anes. And there's achoto from eshet aviv, from his father's wife. So somebody who's with achoto from eshet aviv, so chayav mishum achoto mishum bat eshet aviv. He's chayav for achoto and chayav for bat eshet aviv. He's chayav on both of these psukim. That's the opinion of Tanakama, of the Chachamim.
This is his full sister, right?
It's, they share a father.
Oh, so Lavdafka, it could be his father. His father got married once and then had him, and then he got married a second time and had his sister.
Yeah, his father could have 5 wives, and he has a sister from each of the wives. So he's chayav on all of them, according to Chachamim, 2 isurim. One for achoto and one for bat eshet aviv.
That makes him a well, because the Torah says
there's 2 psukim. One pasuk was just for we're gonna see. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, eno chayav ela mishum achoto bilvad. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says the isur is only achoto and not bat eshet aviv. Velo b'mnei bat eshet aviv. My ta'am. So Rabbi Yossi says 1 isur and Rabbanan say there's 2 isurim. Now we're not going to get to it today, but tomorrow we're going to explain what if there's 1 isur according to Rabbi Yossi, what's the whole reason for the second pasuk? It's a completely extra pasuk. So that we're going to see later on. It's the bottom of this amud. We'll see it tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. So my ta'am de Rabbanan. What's the reason of the Chachamim that they say you're over to? Amri michti ktiv ervat achotecha bat avicha o bat imecha. They have 1 pasuk that says the erva of your sister, bat avicha o bat imecha. Ervat bat esh davicha moledet avicha, achotecha hi lamali. Why do I need that second pasuk? Shma mina lechayevo mishum achoto o mishum bat esh daviv. It's coming to teach me. 1 pasuk is coming to include achoto. It's specifically achoto from a case of onsin. The second pasuk is coming to teach me there's an additional isur if she's also from the wife of your father, from someone who your father married. So you're chayav two isurim for achoto that's also bat eshet aviv. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, what is he going to respond to that? He says, no. Amar kra achotechahi. The second pasuk says achotechahi. What are those words coming to teach me? Those words are extra. Mishum achoto ata mechayvo v'yata mechayvo mishtum bat eshet aviv. He says, we learn from those words achotechahi that it's coming to teach me that you're only chayav for achoto, you're not chayav for bat eshet aviv. Rabbanan, hay achotechahi my avdile. What do Rabbanan do with that pasuk of achotechahi? Meaning, according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, it was extra. It's coming to teach me that it's one isur. It's the isur of achotecha. So what do Rabbanan respond to that? Bebai lehu lechayavo al achoto bat aviv ubat imo. Lomar she'en mazirin min adin. So Chachamim actually need this pasuk. It's a very, very important pasuk. It's a makor to a very important halacha. There's a halacha that ein mazirin min adin. Any time the Torah is giving an isur that comes with an onesh, so you can't make a kal v'chomer that something would be asur to give an onesh on. You can't do that. The Torah you have to have some drasha or some explicit mention in the Torah that it's asur. Even though it makes, there's a kal v'chomer that it should be asur. No, we have a rule, ein mazirin min adin. We don't give an azhara for an onesh min adin, which in the context of this pasuk, you have bat aviv or bat imo. How do you know if it's bat aviv and bat imo? If it's a sister that you share a mother and a father with, we know bat aviv, that's not bat imo. We know bat imo, that's not bat aviv. But if a person is me'anes a lady and has a son, and he's me'anes that same lady and has a daughter, so it's his sister, and it's bat imo and bat aviv, I wouldn't know that unless I would be able to use a kal v'chomer. But the Torah has to make a drasha of achotechahi to include this case to teach me that I need a drasha. Kal v'chomer is not enough, and ein mazirin min hadin. You cannot use a kal v'chomer to give an azhara. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. So Chachamim are using the words achotechahi to teach me ein mazirin min hadin. They're teaching me really two things. They're teaching me that it's including achoto bat aviv and bat imo, and also ein mazirin min adin. You can't use a kal v'chomer to create an isur that you're gonna get punished on. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. So what's Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda gonna respond to that? They just took the words achotechahi to use that. So he says im ken lichtov rachmana achotecha. He says if that's the case, the Torah could have just said achotecha, and I would have learned those things from the extra word achotecha. So I agree. The extra word achotecha teaches me that it's coming to include bat aviv and bat imo, and you see from there ein mazirin min adin. He lamali. Why do I need the word he? The word he is extra. So the word he, Rabbi Yossi says, I learn mishum achotecha ta mechayvo v'yata mechayvo mishtum bat esh davicha, bat esh daviv. That the iser is achoto and not bat eshet aviv. That achotecha he comes to teach me that the isur, there's one isur achoto. We learn from the word he. So Rabbi Yossi says there's two extra words. One of the extra words, achotecha, is teaching me that includes achoto bat aviv bat imo and ein mazirin min adin. And he teaches me that you're chayav on achoto and not on any additional isur. V'Rabbanan, and what about the Rabbanan? Af agav dichtiv achotecha itzrich limichtav he. Rabbanan said, no, I need both. Even though it says achotecha, I still needed it to say he. Why? Shelo tomar ba'alma mazirin min adin. I would have thought that, achotecha, okay, it comes to teach me that it includes achoto bat aviv bat imo, but I wouldn't have necessarily known that I wouldn't be able to include that with a kal v'chomer. So then what would it why would it be there? Obviously, it's coming to teach me that I can't use a kal v'chomer. No, milta de'ati b'kal v'chomer tarach b'katav lakra. There's a concept of something that I would have known from a kal v'chomer. The Torah writes it anyways. So maybe I could have still known it from a kal v'chomer. I could have known someone who's his sister that he shares a mother and a father with. I would have known that from a kal v'chomer, meaning his father was ma'anis, a woman, and had him, and was ma'anis, that same woman, and had a sister. so and had another girl, so that brother and sister, that they're asurim, I would have known it from a kal v'chomer, but the Torah wrote it anyways. So therefore, katav rachmana he, the Torah had to say an extra word he to teach me that no, this is not the case. It's not just I'm writing something that you would have known from a kal v'chomer. I'm making extra words here purposely for there to be a drasha, for you to learn that this needs to be written because we have a rule in mazhirin minadin. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. What's Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda gonna respond to that? Imken lichtav arachman ala chotecha hi beidach kora. If that's the case, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says I hear, but lemasa there are two psukim. If that's the case, it should have written achotecha hi in the previous pasuk, which is talking about, which is really talking about the case of onsin. It shouldn't have written it in this next pasuk. The fact that it's writing it in the second pasuk of Ervat bat eshet avicha seems to be teaching me that bat eshet avicha is the same isur as achotecha, and there's no additional isur. So we're gonna stop here for today. What we're coming out with, is we learned in the Mishnah a couple of things. Basically, a person's brother, even if he's a mamzer, is considered his brother. There's yibum, he's yoresh that brother, he's mitamet to that brother. The only brother that's not a brother is a brother from an ovedet kochavim or from a shivcha. Also, a child is considered his child, and the child is chayav on hitting his father. The child is poter, the father's wife, from yibum, even if the child is a mamzer, as long as it's not a child from an isha, who shivcha or an ovedet kochavim. And then in the Gemara, we learned we have a machloket, Chachamim and Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Chachamim say if a person is together with his sister who is from a lady that his father is married to, it's his sister who's also bat eshet aviv, so he's chayav two isurim. He's over on these two psukim, ervat achotecha and ervat bat eshet avicha. And Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's all one isur, because it says achotecha he, that extra word he teaches me that it's the same isur.